help women, save lives, and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. When she just came out, she told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. So we had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I am Sean Carney, the president and CEO of 40 Days for Life and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. And we are off to a very fast start in 2023. Welcome back to the third ever episode of our video podcast. Thank you for those who have given us positive and negative feedback on our new video podcast. And I'm teasing. We haven't gotten any negative feedback. Ridiculous. It's all been positive, and we're off to a very, very fast start. We're going to cover maps and the landscape of abortion in America on this podcast. So this is where, if you are still an audio listener only, this may be the episode that you want to check out the video podcast, because we're going to put these maps on the screen and go through this. It is confusing. The maps are on our website. We have lawyers who update them as soon as possible, but Planned Parenthood can't keep up with it. We can't keep up with it. It is very busy, but this is as accurate as it is as of this moment. And so be sure to check out the maps. You can also go to our website and see them if you're not watching the video podcast. But where is abortion banned? Where is it legal at 40 weeks? Where do they have these crazy infanticide laws? All of the new different laws. It's a legislative nightmare, and it will be for a while, and we will break it all down for you today. So joining me on this video podcast, somebody who the world, one of the reasons, the many reasons they love the fact that we have a video option, is they get to see Steve Carlin in Madison, Wisconsin, and realize the wonderful man that he indeed is. And he is my co-host today, joining me from January version of Madison, Wisconsin, Mr. Steve Carlin. Steve, how are you?
Hey, Sean, I'm doing great. There's nothing I love more than a nice, bleak mid-January day here in the state of Wisconsin.
Who needs Easter Sunday or the night sky of 4th of July when you can have bleak, deserted, cold, frozen Madison, Wisconsin? So it's no wonder they eat all the cheese curds. You know, you got to have some kind of comfort.
Yeah, it puts on another layer of padding, helps keep you insulated for the cold winter nights when you eat all those deep fried in oil cheese curds.
Yeah, it's not enough to eat the cheese. You got to fry it.
Yeah.
So the start of the year, Steve, and last week we did the New Year's resolutions, pro-life resolutions podcast. Go check that out. But the start of the year, we kind of opened up with getting our souls in line, which is so important in this post-Roe era, particularly when the FBI and the DOJ they used to have no problem with us. Now they're attacking us since Roe, and at least they told us, they admitted, yeah, it's because Roe was overturned. So now we're coming after you, pro-life citizens who have never committed a crime. So we have all this. So we have to take care of our souls. We have to keep perspective, and we have to trust God. And that is really, kind of the basis of 40 Days for Life, prayer and fasting and all of that. So we covered that on the podcast in week 1 of this year, but we also covered Christmas gifts, and you and I, what we give for our wives. So as a follow-up, a couple of weeks later, I'm going to share with you what my wonderful bride, Mary Lisa Carney, gave me for Christmas. Is this amazing coffee mug declaring me her trophy husband.
That is very sweet, Sean. And I don't know how I can comment on that would not be awkward.
Yeah,
I think almost anything I could say would be, you sure are, Sean. You sure are. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that anymore. So we can't say that. I am bringing it up, not to brag that she thinks that I'm a trophy husband, but when I opened it and tears, Steve, were coming to my eyes, that my wife would say this. And as I looked up, she was cracking up laughing at me. And so I was back on the face. And I said, this is great. This is hilarious. Where'd you get this? She said, I saw it in the store and I just started laughing. So I bought it and now I can't stop laughing now that you're holding it. So a little bit of bleak winter cheer for you, Steve, is my wonderful bride laughing at me as she gives me a trophy husband. I'm surprised they can get away with making these.
Yeah,
it's a little sexist.
It really is, and not to mention all the there's 100 different genders. Are there 100 different ways that you can be a spouse?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
No, like trophy binary partner. I mean, it really. We'll probably get some negative emails. This is a controversial mug now that I think about it in these uncertain times. It's supposed to be funny, like a gag gift. But now you think about the world has forfeited the beautiful idea that one can have a sense of humor. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll get some hate mail out of the trophy husband mug. So without being awkward, Steve, I know you're a great dad. You're a great husband. I do think you're a trophy husband. I'm going to send you one of these mugs, just not from me. It's on.
Are you going to be laughing when you give it to me though? That's the question.
No, I'm going to be serious because I don't want to offend anybody else. So
all right, but I guess that doesn't have any bearing as to whether Laura is laughing. That's probably
she's
laughing that you care the most about.
Yeah. I think she will laugh and affirm. How's that?
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. I won't even ask what's behind door number 2. I'll just let's go with that.
Let's take the trophy husband. So, anyways, so we have been messaging Steve and on the podcast and emails. And by the way, subscribe to our YouTube page. We have a lot of stuff that is coming, and it's not just this podcast. It'll be pieces of this podcast, but there's a lot of interesting video material, to leave it at that we'll be sharing over the next coming months. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then you can obviously start watching this if you don't want to listen to it or whatever. But we have said it's going to get worse. It's going to be bad. The overturning of Roe was one of the greatest days in the history of America. Reconstruction was difficult. We see the abortion industry and abortion advocates in this reactionary mindset where they're just like, let's say and do the craziest, dumbest stuff ever to prove how pro-abortion we are. And the reason they're doing all that is because they weren't ready. They were not ready. The local pro-abortion activist movement doesn't exist. And most of the abortion advocates and those in the media were completely asleep at the wheel when Roe was overturned. So, Steve, we're seeing these reactions and new challenges, new problems that we will cover today on the podcast. We had pharmacy, of the abortion drugs now shipped to pharmacies. That came out about a week and a half ago. We see these reactions, but it's a sign that we're winning.
It really is. And you talk about the abortion industry wasn't ready. How could they be ready? I'm not sure, even if they were ready, that they could have been ready, because there's no enthusiasm for abortion at the grassroots or really any other level than the influencers in our society who think they're sophisticated because they favor bullying the tiniest of our fellow brothers and sisters. So how could they be ready? But, again, you said, Sean, we've got some problems. There are some challenges. We knew that would be the case. Nobody should be surprised by that. And we're going to sort of break down on the map where we've got a lot going for us and where we've got a lot that we have to overcome, and it's something we should be grateful for. Let's say that 49 different states kept abortion completely legal all 9 months of pregnancy, as we saw under Roe v. Wade. if we just saved children in one state, wouldn't that be a step in the right direction? Would that be worth celebrating? And we can take a look at the first state on our map that we're going to focus on is the state of Alabama, which is the one state in the union which has, as we sometimes say on this podcast, wrapped itself in glory and ended abortion throughout the entire gestation of a pregnancy without exception. The people of Alabama have done it. I think that's fantastic. Lives being saved there. I mean, I know you might be listening in California or Illinois or Boston and you're thinking, gosh, that doesn't really help us here, but it's something we can all celebrate, that it's a first step. It shows what can be done. And I think one of the things that has me the most fired up about the state of Alabama is you look at we'll go back, we can't quite get away from talking about the election, but there was all the analysis suggesting that it was pushback, feedback, blowback on Roe v. Wade that led to a very mediocre election for pro-lifers. This one state in the union that has completely ended abortion, Alabama, the governor who signed it into law was reelected by 38 percentage points. So I think it shows, I think it's a torch. I think it's a beacon in the night for the rest of America on what can happen now that we have finally gotten the monkey off our backs that was Roe v. Wade.
It's becoming like a scapegoat. I mean, we have praised what the three awesome Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump appointed. He is by far, by action alone, doesn't matter what you think of him, he's the most pro-life president ever, by far. That's a problem, by the way, because we've had so many disappointing pro-life presidents and Republicans and certainly Democrats. We've had disappointing judicial nominees. But even Trump, I mean, that was the dumbest thing he could have done is start blaming abortion for the lame Republicans and weak Republicans who couldn't articulate abortion. Blame that on the pro-life movement. And then, of course, he said when he was tweeting that, or he's not on Twitter, he's on his own Truth. What is it, Steve?
Truth Social, I think.
Truth Social. He said that the pro-life movement went away, and some of that, maybe that's true in some state level stuff. I don't think that it is. We work with a lot of great state groups. 40 Days for Life didn't go away. We grew. To our own surprise, in some level, we added U.S. cities with the overturning of Roe, even losing cities because abortion facilities were closing. And we grew in volunteers. We grew certainly in campaigns, with the largest campaign ever. And I don't understand this. This is now, for him, a pro-life politician turning on his own. The pro-life movement elected Donald Trump. I mean, we've talked about a lot that the death of Scalia changed the 2016 election. They made it about, it doesn't matter if you hate Hillary, whatever. There's already one Supreme Court justice up. There's probably going to be another one. There may be a third. Ended up, that was true. And Trump got to a 0.3. So I didn't understand that. I'm not saying I can get into the mind of Donald Trump, but like, you have the pro-life movement that really approves and praises Trump for what he did for our cause. And then for some reason, even he fell into this trap, Steve, that, it was abortion. Where when you look at the map, and I know we have the map up there, and you look at the elections, it was politicians who owned it, who owned science, who owned giving dignity to all American citizens, who owned being pro-life, i.e. DeSantis, Abbott, Kemp, and they won big.
They did. And again, this is all good news here. We talk about the challenges, but this is very good news. And I think it's interesting too. We talk about Alabama passing the most pro-life law in the nation. It kind of flew under the radar, didn't it? Like, we remember, many of us at least remember when that law was signed, but it didn't draw the headlines that the Georgia heartbeat bill did. You know, remember the corporations were going to pull out. Netflix was going to quit making movies in Georgia. It didn't draw quite the attention of the Texas Heartbeat Act, or even the Mississippi bill that challenged and ended Roe v. Wade. Didn't really quite draw any of those headlines, but yet here we have in the state, again, in the Deep South, a region that is known in the history books for historical dehumanization of the vulnerable. Here, Alabama becoming really the tip of the spear in leading the nation toward really a more humane society, respect for all of God's children.
Yeah, and it gives it the smoke is clearing right now, and this is why 40 Days for Life is built for a post-Roe America. It's leaving DC, where we're the weakest, I think, as a movement overall. We had a great era with Donald Trump, but that's been the exception, not the rule. We've overall been very disappointing in DC from
Even during the Trump administration, I could get on my 2017 congressional Republicans. They didn't defund Planned Parenthood. I think I'm just not looking to go down that path again, Sean, but it proves your point.
It does prove my point, and maybe I'll do it. So they didn't do that. Trump actually wanted to do it. Republicans weren't ready. And your boy was terrible. He's not your boy. He was terrible. Paul Ryan. And so that's 6 years, Steve. Let's say it took him a year to do it. 5 years of Planned Parenthood losing $500 million. So yeah, that is a great point. That is very disappointing. When they had it. They could have done it, and they weren't ready, and they didn't do it, and they were terrified about it. Anyways, we won't get into details. But when you look at this map, this is good. There are some people that are like, oh no, Roe was overturned. Now they're trying to ship pills across the state lines, which we knew was coming. Now they're doing abortion RVs, which we knew was coming. Now they're going to build a big mega center in Colorado or New Mexico. We knew all those things were coming. And I will say we knew Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. So from the 40 Days for Life perspective, we had a post-Roe plan, and we've implemented it. We had the post-Roe symposium. We had our largest campaign ever. We had launched a year before the Dobbs case, 40 Days for Life University, as a test, because we knew that would be very important in a post-Roe America, because it leaves DC, it goes to where you live, it's in the grassroots, and they can't stop us from changing hearts and minds, which they're trying to do by making 40 Days for Life illegal through buffer zones and legal action. And we're fighting those, and we'll win. But it's going to where our strength is. And so don't fall into this January. And I know the marches, I'm going to San Francisco this week to speak at the West Coast March for Life, which is awesome. It's like 60,000 people. We're going to give away our scholarship also. The March for Life is in DC this year. All of this is a good anniversary for Roe, because Roe's dead, and I'd love to see him move the marches. I have zero interest in keeping the Roe v. Wade anniversary on life support, just like I don't want the Dred Scott decision on life support. And I want to celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation. I want to celebrate Dobbs, that gave freedom to these unborn children. So anyways, all of this is going on, and there is a little bit of sentiment that Roe being overturned somehow is bad because all these new challenges. But Steve, these are challenges we want. I mean, this
bring
is like
it on, baby. Bring it on.
Yeah, it's like your football team goes into the playoffs, and you're like, now we got to play in cold weather. Yeah, but you're in the playoffs. So we're winning, and that's why we did that Roe is Dead webcast. You can definitely check that out. That was last week, actually, last Tuesday, January the 10th. So go out and check that out. But there's a lot of good news. Like, we're winning. Things are going well. When things go well for one side of anything, the other side loses their minds. It's just the way it happens. It's human nature. And there's one side that wants to embrace and get over our sort of dark history of 64 million babies that we've killed. And there's another side that is sprinting to be on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of science. And we know, especially in the United States, we can be a very harsh judge of history, and history will judge abortion very harshly. So be positive, bring people into the light that the Supreme Court overturning what many liberal pro-abortion justices said was bad law, like Ginsburg, is a good thing. And this map is really going to represent, as we update it and go through it, it's going to show the sentiment and the resistance. For instance, Steve Carlin, we said back at the beginning, this time last year, because Dobbs was argued and everybody's talking about the states were kind of passing a lot of what you see on this map. Who's going to ban abortion? And the whole notion was, remember this? 27 states were going to be completely abortion free. That's what That's what we were hearing, which is total BS, because essentially you have Alabama and Idaho. And the whole idea that what we were saying is we will be surprised and disappointed at how many don't ban abortion. And you look at this: Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, Fargo, great 40 Days for Life campaign, South Carolina, Georgia, who we just bragged on, Florida, DeSantis, North Carolina, that's not too out there, but Nebraska, we saw what happened in Kansas. It's going to be, I mean, they all have like gestational limits, you know? So I think that a lot of people thought, mainly who were pro-abortion, the whole country is going to be, you know, pro-life, and that has not happened. And that's why the grassroots are very important. You look at the map on the other end, you're not making abortion illegal in Oregon, California, New Jersey, New York. No way. So you got to go and change hearts and minds.
The states too, I think what's something that I find interesting is the states that have ended abortion, maybe they've got exceptions. They didn't go to the lengths and have the courage that Alabama had, but they ended abortion almost exclusively. 99+% of abortions are gone according to their law. It's more or less, it's roughly what you would expect it to be, politically speaking. It's the Deep South, it's Appalachia, it's Idaho, it's South Dakota. I mean, of these states, of 11 of them, 9 of them touch each other. You see the regional fabric of this. And I think that too is a victory for us. I wish that we would have, coast to coast, the 27 states that you talked about, Sean. But the fact that we've got a huge patch right in the heart of our country that is virtually abortion free is good news. Because if you live in, say, Louisiana right now, you can't just cross a border. We're hearing about the border abortion facilities and the abortion vans that will pull right up to the borders. And that's true. And it's something we've got to worry about. But if you live in Louisiana, you've got to cross multiple states. If you live in Houston by you, Sean, there's no easy place to get an abortion. You're either driving all the way across Texas to New Mexico, or you're driving across Oklahoma to get to Kansas. There's a lot of the country right now where abortion is really inaccessible. And that is good, because there aren't, as we've talked about, there aren't just a ton of women who are going to get on a plane and fly to have an abortion. Just not going to happen as often as the abortion industry would have us believe. And so this is really a scenario where I think it's almost like, we've kind of got this foothold, and we've got to continue to expand that foothold outward. Every new state, every new city, every new locality that becomes abortion free gets us that one step closer. And in the end of the day, this is why we're seeing the birth rate going up. You can talk a lot about who's crossing borders and who's not. There are more babies being born since Dobbs overturned Roe v. Wade. That is a fact that we can all sleep with joy in our hearts at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the conservative estimate is 75,000 babies in Texas over the last 2 years since we had the heartbeat bill. And then, of course, we had Roe v. Wade overturned. There's a cash flow issue, and that's where you, 40 Days for Life participant, pregnancy resource center worker, or volunteer, that's where you're so powerful, because you have hurt the abortion business locally so much that when any restrictions come in, it doesn't have to be a ban. That's the extreme. Even a ban with exceptions, that's an extreme. But any restrictions, they don't have the cash, because your 40 Days for Life is dragging their business away. It impacts the bottom line. And this becomes market driven, which is, as I said in the beginning, the strength of the pro-life movement is getting people away from abortion facilities, getting them into pregnancy resource centers. And that's why you're going to see the next 12 months, a lot of abortion facilities close. We're going to see that in Texas for sure. But those states that you went over, if you're looking at the map on the screen, and Steve, for the audio listeners, Steve had mentioned Idaho and Texas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Missouri, and South Dakota. They're all essentially abortion free. There's no abortions going on. And I can speak to that from Texas. I mean, with this massive 78,000 square foot abortion facility, and it is empty. It is empty. And we're still out there until they leave, but town forever. But if you're going to have an abortion facility, you don't just need to do abortions. You need to do a lot of abortions.
Yeah. And this is why I think it's super important to continue to go out and pray, even if abortion is gone in your state. If there's a Planned Parenthood facility in your state that's referring out of state, they're surviving because of what we talked about before, because Planned Parenthood wasn't defunded. That abortion giant is able to continue cashing the government checks and try to weather this storm. And they're going to hope for a successful election, or they're going to hope for a fortunate court decision for the abortion industry. And they're going to try to weather that storm. We need to be resolute and to make sure that that does not happen.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And yeah, not to go back to 2017, but they are weathering the storm. They're laying people off and they're not doing that, but they're sitting here going, we got to get 2024. We've got to get some kind of appeal. And the first wave of that was the midterms, which I think looked good if you're pro-abortion, considering, because it did bring more people out. But that's what's sustaining them, is the tax funding, to hit your point, Steve. Okay. Let's go to the other. So that's the good news of the map. That's like awesome. Way to go. Look at those blue states. Isn't that funny that that's how our map is, Steve? We're not political. The pro-life states are blue, which, as we've pointed out on a political podcast, is how it started, by the way. Pro-life states were indeed blue. They were Democrat. Anyways, we won't get into that. Okay. That's the good. Let's go to the bad and the ugly.
Well, let's get crazy here. We've got eight.
Yeah, you can deliver the headline.
All right.
Bad news.
States in our country that allow abortion without restriction. First month, 9th month, babies coming out. It doesn't matter. They're going to allow abortions in any case. These are the states that find themselves in the category alongside China and North Korea. But you know what, Sean? China doesn't allow sex selection abortion. It happens, but it's not allowed by law. And so you've got a lot of these states that are even more radical than Communist People's Republic of China. So these states, you should be concerned if you live here. We're talking, and this is kind of fascinating to me too, Sean, because you look at the map, we talked about the pro-life states are pretty much where you'd expect them to be, thinking about the cultural and the political geography of America. That's not as much the case when it comes to the states that are just an abortion free-for-all. Yes, you've got Vermont, you've got New Jersey, you've got Washington, D.C., you've got Oregon, but you've also got Alaska, red Alaska. Let's take a quick aside here before we talk about other states, Sean, because Alaska kind of baffles me. And all I can figure is that Alaska is one of those states where they're conservative, but they're sort of the libertarian streak of conservative. And maybe this is why what we saw in Montana, when Montana voted against getting rid of infanticide of children who have survived abortions. I don't know quite what it is, but maybe that's why Wyoming is not on the list of thoroughly pro-life states. There seems to be sort of this frontier libertarian mentality. Do you see that? What's going on there?
Yeah, we have a lot of that in Texas. I have relatives that are like the libertarian. You should pay a toll to get on an interstate. If you don't use the interstate, you don't pay for it. There's very much a libertarian mindset in Texas, but I'd say it's gone down the last 25 years in a good way, and so, but it's gotten more conservative and less libertarian, if you want to put it in political terms. So I understand the libertarian thing. I think you're exactly right. That's the only reason the Montana thing didn't surprise me, because it's forget everything. I'm going out to the frontier. I'm building my cabin. I'm raising my kids. I'm making my own soap. I'm growing my own onions. And if you come near me, I'm going to shoot you. And, that whole like no government whatsoever, get rid of the TSA, that mentality, partially of which can be very helpful in a free society, but that helps. That's Alaska for sure. I mean, Steve, it's like the North Pole, and you live in the North Pole. This is like the North Pole.
Actually covers the North Pole. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, you can see you can see Russia from there. So some old school stuff. That's fun. But I've been up there a couple of times. The pro-lifers are awesome. Alaska Right to Life is phenomenal. They run the 40 Days for Life campaigns. I've been all throughout the state. I've been to Fairbanks, up way up north. I was there on May 20th, and it had 2 or 3 feet of snow on the ground in Fairbanks, Alaska, which I thought was cool because I don't know. I don't get to see snow as a Texan. I actually took a photo with a reindeer, Steve. So, anyways, Alaska is awesome. But you get that mentality that we're going to do what we want, when we want, and no one's going to tell us otherwise. And the problem with that, because you get these liberals that say, I thought you wanted small government. Why should the government have a say in your health care? Well, because they're killing folks. So I don't want the government in all my business. But if my neighbor says, hey, I've got 3 slaves, you want to meet them? I'm probably going to report him. In fact, I know I will. So this whole notion that, we want a small government so that we can run a red light drunk and kill someone, that's not freedom. That's license, and it's absurd. So
we could have a very long and interesting and exciting and philosophical conversation about what is the proper role of government in society. But I think if everybody left, right, and center could agree that there's one legitimate purpose of government, it's stop strong people from killing weak people. Absolutely.
And national defense and protecting the dignity of protecting the rights, particularly in our country. We have the right to life. We are guaranteed that. So when that's violated, you can't say, well, the government's taking away. That this isn't the government taking your land and building a Walgreens. Okay, it's totally different. And so I don't like that. I think it's a total cop-out, that they want small government so the woman should decide. By the way, who they're not thinking about in that scenario is the woman herself. They don't care if she has an abortion or not. And I think there's a lot wrong with that in our culture. They don't care whether she chooses life. They don't care whether she has an abortion. So that's kind of the worst, right? Okay. So those states, we highlighted those states. A lot of them are expected, but Alaska's not. And certainly Montana's infanticide vote. We've done that. If you're on the YouTube channel after this, you can go watch the Montana video that we put out back in, I think it was November, December, just breaking that down. Okay. So when you look at this map, it's basically a couple of categories: banning, restricting abortion, when, again, the whole viability, certain points of gestation. So there's a lot of variation, and we'll kind of break it down. So, okay, first off, as we mentioned, California, Illinois, and New York don't allow unrestricted abortion. Most people think that they do. They don't.
I did until I saw this map.
But Steve's now educating himself with his own map. And I want to thank, I want to thank our, Matt and Elizabeth, our lawyers, and we've had a lot of people pour into this. So those states don't have unrestricted abortion, but they basically do, Steve.
They basically do. I think in New York, obviously, we spent the last 4 years talking about Governor Cuomo and his just outrageous attack on life. And that's kind of why I was looking at the map. I was like, isn't that what he signed? Isn't that what we were talking about? And no, they put in, there's some fig leaf protections late in the 3rd trimester. So technically, New York is a state that doesn't have unlimited, unrestricted abortion. There's some minor speed bumps on the way to the latest of late-term abortions. And so you've got states like that where there's technically a fig leaf. You've got states like here in Wisconsin right now. We're in the same category, I suppose, where we know we have a 22-week limit on abortion. We think we might have a total ban on abortion with one exception for the life of the mother. The abortion industry thinks that because they haven't done an abortion in over 6 months, but no one's quite entirely sure whether that law is in effect and how the courts will handle it when it works its way through the courts. So you see both extremes, and then you see stuff in the middle too. Florida has a 15-week ban, so they're kind of splitting the baby, to use an idiom that is a little too apt for this particular case. Is DeSantis going to do more to cut back on abortion? He said he would. It's believed that he would, but we've got a whole lot of the country here that's all over the place, left, right, in between. And this is true battleground. This is where these fights are being fought out, and both in the Capitol and on the sidewalk.
That's how we started the year off, with the spiritual battle part of this, with our opening podcast of the year on January 3rd, because you can't explain some of this stuff that we just sort of crave abortion, but also, more importantly, that it reminds us that abortion is not built on politics. It's built on pain. And that's why, Steve, Planned Parenthood, they've done a really good job in some states at battling this. They've certainly done a good job politically over the last, 25 years, really upped their funding and then just totally embraced whatever Democrat was running and got on the party platform and all that stuff that the Democrats would be pro-abortion. So they've done a good job legislatively, but they're dead in the water in the grassroots level. And that's where this is going. And I think we have a huge advantage at the grassroots level.
You mentioned after Roe was overturned that some of the abortion activists could see it coming. They saw the handwriting on the wall. They still weren't ready for it, but they could see it coming because they could see how in the public consciousness, the pro-life side had become the compassionate side. And I think that goes a long way to explaining that phenomenon that you just described. Why are there not abortion supporters marching in the streets? Okay, there's some. They're not sending their best people, as the saying goes. Why aren't average, regular, ordinary people out marching in the street from abortion? Because it's cruel and it's mean. And when we go out and pray, and when we go out and witness, and when we go out and serve in our pregnancy help centers and provide adoption resources, we do all of these things. It further cements that there's a gap. There's a gap between your pro-life or your pro-choice or your radically pro-abortion. And there's a lot of people who are maybe in that middle category, but there's not a lot of radical pro-abortion supporters right now, and it provides them no engine for change at the local level.
Yeah, not locally. There's radical crazies, and they're on TV and they're screaming in the cameras, but it's passive. It's passive. I would never have an abortion, but I don't know.
You're going to put your Twitter hashtag up with your other Twitter people with their hashtags. You get this echo chamber of the same extreme left-wing people talking about the same things to the same people all the time. And it has no impact. There's a lot of people who I don't think recognize that Twitter is not the real world.
Twitter is not the real world. Thank God. And we have to be on it, but there's a huge disconnect here with the nature of man, in that no woman grows up wanting an abortion, and they're not clamoring and dying to get on United.com, book their flight, park their car, and fly to California, give Governor Newsom a high five, walk into Planned Parenthood and say, "Take this, Texas. Take this, Mississippi. I'm having an abortion." It just doesn't work like that. And we see that in the parking lots of abortion facilities for the last 20 years. Distance is a deterrent, and not because it's like a deterrent, like we're not giving them bread to eat because it's too far away. Pregnancy is not stage 4 cancer. The abortion industry wants to act like it is. They want to say that unless you have an abortion, you'll die. Hillary Clinton tweeted that the day that Dobbs overturned Roe. They want to say that it's absolutely urgent that you get out to California, you go to Colorado, you go to New York, and you get your abortion. But women have never acted like that, ever. when it comes to abortion. We act like that when somebody tells us we have pancreatic cancer, we have stage 4 brain cancer. You scramble. Here where I live, MD Anderson, one of the best cancer hospitals in the world. People come and they live here because they got to get cancer treatment. It's not because they like our heat and humidity or they care about the Astros. It's because their life is in danger. People don't do that for abortion. People don't travel for long distances for a lot of healthcare. It's very rare that you would travel across state lines for healthcare. You need to be dying. You have to be dying, or you have to have a very rare illness that can only be treated in a few parts of the world. That is not abortion. Abortion is an elective surgery that has never in the history of the world saved the life of a woman. And Steve, we've talked about that. Don't listen to us. We're pro-life activists. Abortion doctors have said it, that it doesn't save the life of the mother. Current ones, including one who said it's noble. It sounds noble, but it's just not true. Abortion can never save your life. Alan Guttmacher, who is literally the father of Planned Parenthood and the second president of Planned Parenthood, said that an abortion can never save your life. Countless doctors have said, if anything, stopping to save the life of the mother and doing an abortion would only further endanger her. So this garbage that they're going to travel is a talking point. And I think as a result, they're going to build all these abortion facilities on these border states. And instead of having like 6, fast food restaurants at an interstate exit, they're going to have 50 and they're going to close. You're not going to be able to sustain the numbers because women won't travel, because women don't really want abortion. That's why the birth rate is going up. That's why there's 75,000 babies alive in Texas today.
And I know the response to that too, Sean. It's like, well, I'm in South Carolina, and our parking lot at our Planned Parenthood is full of cars from Georgia because Georgia is more restrictive on abortion. We've got to be a little bit more discerning, I think, and analytical about that, because if you are in South Carolina and there's 5 Georgia plates in your abortion facility parking lot, that is frustrating. It's overwhelming. It's tragic. But if there were 30 women who were going to be getting abortions and only 5 of them did, that is a big step in the right direction. Now, those 5 that are going to South Carolina, we've got to fight for them. We've got to pray for them. We've got to continue to show up and pray at the referral centers in Georgia. But we also need to celebrate the fact that 25 of those 30 babies are safe. And just because the optic of a bunch of Georgia license plates looks bad and frustrating doesn't mean that there's not real progress being made. We got to think about, you can't count the cars that stayed home. There's no way to put a number on it until we see that increasing birth rate, or the 75,000 in Texas that you just mentioned. Give it some time. When the statistics come out for the year, you're going to see how many abortions didn't take place across state lines.
And no one's talking about that. We said it on the podcast, on the webcast, January 10th. If you want to go check that out. One of the things that's going to happen in 2023, because we lay out what to expect from the abortion industry and from the pro-life movement, babies are going to be born. That's what's going to happen this year. Why? Because otherwise they would have been aborted. And now they're not going to be. Praise God.
Sean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was going to say that is very tolerant of our society.
I got excited. I got fired up because as you were talking, Sean, I got a little window pop up on my screen from our good friend, Dan Miller, sending me an email. 2 babies saved here in abortion-free Wisconsin. So there have been no abortions for over 6 months. They're still saving babies. Those are 2 babies that did not go to Illinois. They did not travel across state lines for an abortion because somebody went out to pray.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. And that is a great example from our wonderful buddy, Dan Miller. Your state is abortion free, like Texas or right now Wisconsin. So they go to Illinois, they go to New Mexico. You can still save a life. And that's why we still have campaigns. Now, we lost 40 Days for Life campaigns. Don't get me wrong, because the clinics closed and the local leader said, praise God, great. We'll help out maybe at another city, but that's it. We're done. That's the best reason to lose a location. But we have a lot of locations that are still referring out of state, and that's why it's important that we're at those locations. And by the way, Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry have zero counter to that. That's why we're apparently being watched and scolded and attacked by the FBI and the DOJ. Because if they get rid of us if they make up a narrative and say, y'all are all terrorists, what'd we do? Nothing, but you're under arrest. If they do that and they actually get rid of us, that's the only way they can do it. And to do that, they have to get rid of the Constitution. So we continue to go out there peacefully, prayerfully, lawfully. We love law enforcement. I don't know of another national, much less international organization that is publicly outside protesting something, causing a stink about something where half the people don't think we should be there and half are glad that we are. I don't know of another effort, movement, organization that works as closely with the police as we do. BLM? Probably not. Go out on a limb.
They work with the police, just not very collaboratively, you might say.
The homosexual movement, but they have kind of marches. They don't have a lot of local stuff. Antifa? Are they working with local law enforcement, Steve? I mean, we know police chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
We know FBI agents. We talk to the FBI and the DOJ all the time. I mean, look, we've harped on them. There is no doubt, especially at the top, we have great enemies at the DOJ and the FBI. Okay, to say otherwise would be absurd. Obviously, that's the case. But we also have a lot of allies in the FBI and the DOJ, and a lot of great men and women that work for those organizations that I want the FBI. I'm not a defund the FBI guy. I think that's absurd. I want the FBI to go out and get sex traffickers and drug lords and arrest them and knock down their door and drag them out. I don't want them to do that to Mark Houck for an altercation that a local DA didn't prosecute him on. So I think we're going to win. We're going to win big. But that whole notion that they just kind of want to get rid of us and that we are a proven law-abiding effort. And there's a lot of movements in America that aren't. And that is because of our disposition. Because we're not angry. We're not out burning down the abortion clinic saying, you murderers. We don't do that. We are out there praying. We're out there peacefully. And that's why what they have to come up with has to be fabricated. But that's why it's so effective at a Planned Parenthood referral center or a Planned Parenthood abortion facility, especially in a post-Roe America. So be encouraged.
That's why we're doing this podcast, right, Sean? Because, I mean, we're not just here to sit and look at a map. You don't know this about me. It's not going to surprise you, Sean, but I could sit and look at a map all day long. I didn't know Cincinnati was that far east. I love that stuff. Yeah. But that's not what we're up to here. There's a purpose to this. What do we do with this information? How do we put it into effect? Dan Miller just answered that question 3 minutes ago. He went out and he prayed at a 40 Days for Life vigil in a state that is not doing abortions and saved 2 babies. But there's a lot that we can do, including praying at those referral centers, and including, this isn't what we do through 40 Days for Life, but we need to continue big picture to move these state laws in the right direction, to make the states that ban most abortions more like Alabama, to make the states that allow half of the abortions more like the states that are like Alabama. We've got real action items that we can take on here. This is, not just, I don't know how it's a multi-front spiritual battle here. We can be active in the political front. We can be active on our knees on the sidewalk. And frankly, I think when we're active on the knees on our sidewalk through that public witness and through petitioning our Lord, that's the engine that fuels every other success we have in this movement, whether it's in state capitals, federal capitals, in the courts, in our pregnancy help centers. I think prayer fuels it all. And that's why we're looking at this map here, because it gives us different ideas and different ways that we can put this train into motion.
It does. And it brings joy too, which is the undercurrent of what you're saying, because we're joyful. We're joyful. And the pro-life movement is positive. The West Coast Walk for Life, I've gone most years. I wasn't able to go the year Unplanned came out, and I couldn't go, I think last year, I can't remember, but I've gone, I think 10 different years. It is my favorite pro-life event of the year. I love it. And when you tell somebody, you'll tell like a relative, oh, I'm speaking at the West Coast Walk for Life in San Francisco. And they're like, you're going to die. It's like, no, it's positive. And, California, of course you get a couple of crazy people, but maybe it'll be different this year, knock on wood, as I sit here. But it's pleasant. California's still got a lot of, hey, bro, what's up? I hate you. The militants are in other parts. We've kind of covered that. But California definitely has its list of crazies, but there's families everywhere. There's nuns everywhere. It's the most diversified event I ever go to every year. I mean, you got people from everywhere marching, and it's absolutely beautiful. And that's why it's positive. That's why we're winning in the grassroots. And just ask yourself a question as a podcast listener or now watcher. If you were halfway pro-abortion and they overturn Roe, what would you do? What would you do? Because I'll tell you what you probably wouldn't do. You probably wouldn't be like Anne Hathaway and say that abortion is a mercy. Probably wouldn't do that. You probably wouldn't burn down a pregnancy center. You probably wouldn't want people who pray outside abortion facilities arrested for no reason and banned. I mean, there's a large segment of the population that doesn't like the mainstream responses that you're getting from the leaders of the abortion movement. There's a lot of people that don't like that who support abortion. There's just not much to do. In the end, the Supreme Court did what they should have done, which is overturn a law they created out of thin air. And so they corrected their error, which is what they do. It's their biggest victories are when they correct their errors, things we don't vote on. And they did that. And it goes back to the states. And I'm telling you, the motivation for the pro-life movement's at an all-time high because it's built on hearts and minds. And the pro-abortion movement is not. It is now. It's built on a negative, which is I don't want the baby. I can't afford the baby. It's not a baby. It is healthcare, and I'll scream it at the top of my lungs to convince myself. But it's all coming out as anger. It's not Anne Hathaway doesn't look comfortable when she's saying that. It's probably the most telling and sad thing about that clip. She does not look comfortable because she's not. And we could all go on and say that life is the most beautiful thing and life begins at conception, not because we say it, but because science tells us we can prove it. We can watch it. It's beautiful. There's documentaries. We defend babies. We love babies, and we melt when we look into the eyes of a newborn. And we're not going to look uncomfortable saying that. We're going to light up because it's awesome. And they can't light up when they give their message. And that needs to be a source of encouragement. So don't be discouraged. Don't buy into the narrative that somehow a post-Roe America is bad. A post-Roe America is great. It creates new problems and new crazies, but we stick to what we have been doing, which is peaceful prayer vigil, fasting, showing up, and offering alternatives. So one thing, Steve, as we close out, is that this is a map of the U.S. And I know I was asked in an interview earlier today, so y'all are in 65 countries. Are other countries excited? Or do other countries care that Roe was overturned? And I say, I think they're actually more excited than many people in our country.
And maybe this is because I'm an American, and so I think we're the center of the world. But I think when it came out, I kind of thought that we'd see a collective shrug of the shoulders from the rest of the world. And instead, it hasn't been that at all. They're fired up. The Canadians who I work with are fired up. They're pumped up about it. They're celebrating. They're coming to the March for Life in Washington, and they're going to celebrate with everybody. And it doesn't just cause them to celebrate, but it gives them cover, because our government and other Western governments are putting tremendous pressure on pro-life countries in Latin America, Africa, and elsewhere. You can't get foreign aid. You can't get an international aid. A hurricane or an earthquake or terrorism is killing your people, and we're not going to help unless you accept abortion. And so some of these, every country, America isn't the only country to have wishy-washy pro-life lawmakers. Everybody has them, and say, okay, well, I know abortion is bad, but I can't abandon my people by not providing them the foreign aid from the U.S. to overcome the earthquake. And so you've got these lawmakers who are succumbing to the pressure and they're giving into it. What do they see right now? They see that America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, the leader of the free world, the most influential country on the globe, America has turned back. It shows that abortion is not inevitable, and it's not, at least in a legalization sense, it's not irreversible. It can be stopped. It doesn't need to be accepted. And that's going to save lives everywhere.
Yeah, and it's America ended abortion, or America overturned their federal law, and America gave us abortion, especially if you're Latin America. Pro Familia is Planned Parenthood in Latin America, and they have Marie Stopes, white British abortionist, Marie Stopes, white eugenics, Planned Parenthood founder, Margaret Sanger, all go to Latin America. Get rid of the brown people. They also went to Africa. And now our government and Bill Gates and everybody else funds this. So these countries look at us, and they should look at us with disdain. We love families. We love big families. We're not embarrassed that we don't have as much money as you. Many of them are Catholic countries, which the abortion industry just, loathes. And they go in and they give them contraception, tell them they ought not breed, and they need abortion. And I was in Bogota, Colombia at our conference a month ago, 80 abortion facilities within 2 square miles. It's not even like a Starbucks and a McDonald's and it's a Taco Bell. It's like all of them, except they're abortion facilities. You're just going down. It's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable. And Pro Familia everywhere. You know what's nice? Bogota is a rough town, Steve. You know what's beautiful and nice often and clean? Pro Familias. So they're making money and very deceitful. So anyways, the world is watching because we were the leaders of abortion in the world in the same category when we had Roe of North Korea, China, and Vietnam, which we've said for years, which even Alito put in the opinion. And it's gone back to the states. And this is our time as part of the grassroots movement, is to go out, change hearts and minds, and close these abortion facilities like we've done in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Seattle, in London, in Chicago, in New York. We've done it everywhere, especially in the blue states, as we've been highlighting the pro-abortion states, since our map is blue. So we'll continue to update this map, and we will share it on our website. So if you're in a conversation or you're doing research or whatever, go to our website. It'll always be there. We'll update it. And even as the recording of this podcast, it may need updating, but we're on it if that's the case. But be sure to definitely go and check out the map and share it with people who ask you a bunch of questions. It is confusing, but it's confusing for everyone. And by the way, we welcome the new challenges and we welcome the confusion, because it used to be you create laws, it goes up to the Supreme Court, and they get shot down. And that is no mas. So we are pumped about that. All good things, as Olaf said. So thank you, Steve. Be sure to rate, review, share this podcast. Make a comment on the YouTube channel if you can. That would be great. I want to give another shout out and thank you to my wonderful bride for buying me this trophy husband coffee mug, which she laughed at as I opened it. So anyway, Steve, I will send you yours FedEx tomorrow.
Can't wait.
You deserve it. All right. We will see you. Hope to see you in San Francisco. We'll have people in DC. We'll be spread out. Steve is going to Los Angeles. We'll be at all the marches this weekend. It's going to be busy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to get out the first Post-Roe March for Life and West Coast Walk for Life. We look forward to it. So thank you. And God bless you.